Well, I thought I'd shoot a very quick video on this Calais that absolutely everybody has been asking me about. I've done a few things to it since, well, I don't think I've ever done an update video, so that's probably half the problem. Yeah, if you're going to open the bonnet while you got the window down, just make sure you've unlocked the car, because otherwise the alarm will go off and it's loud. So anyway, first of all, I'll show you some broken components. Well, two broken components. So I'll bring this under the bonnet where the sun's a little less aggressive. We've got two of these. I'm sure you guys know what they are, and if you don't, they're caster rod bushes, and they're sad. So sorry, I'm holding the camera and doing this so you can see that that's obviously not bonded where it should be, because this crush tube's meant to be bonded to the bush. This was the driver's side one, and it's absolutely buggered. Like, you can see the huge splits and things in it, so that's all supposed to be bonded. This is the passenger side one, or the left hand side of the car if you're facing out the windscreen, and it's not as bad, but you can certainly see that it's starting to separate. So I can throw these in the bin now that I've done that. It pulled to the left when I drove it, because it did have rego when I bought the car, and this is why, because the caster angle was just so far out. So let's put them on the ground. So the new ones, if you don't know where they live, you can see them down here. Now that's one of the new ones. That's the driver's side one. It's nothing special, it's just an aftermarket one off eBay, Calpro, or I don't even know what brand it is. There's the other one there. Now, I didn't do a how-to video on these things because they're very, very straightforward to replace. There are torque settings and you should observe them. I don't know how much of this is going to come out, but you can see how it works. There's 4 nuts on studs and there's a large nut in the middle. The large nut in the middle is supposed to be replaced every time you have it off. Now, personally, I didn't. I am going to run the torque wrench over that. I don't see it causing a problem. You're going to know before that nut gets to the end of the thread. Like, you know, you can see you've got a decent centimetre and a half maybe before you get to the end of the thread, and it's going to be very, very obvious. More critical, I think, is torquing the nuts up to the specifications, but you should use a torque wrench on any suspension components. So I'm going to cut a long story short. I've done work to the supercharger. I've also gotten rid of the brackets for that ugly plastic dog rocket cover thing that sits on top of the engine, because I quite like looking at the supercharger. You know, tell me that doesn't look better than the standard cover thing. So anyway, there's not enough oil in the supercharger. There's enough to lubricate it, but you wouldn't want to go driving it around like this. I suppose it's about 1.5 centimetres under where it should be. It should be filled up to here. So the kit for the supercharger is by a mob called Superchargers Online. I'll take a photograph of the actual, you know, bit of paper that came with the advertisement, if you like, that came with the kit. It gives you some specialised sealant. You can just sort of see the sealant there, the red stuff. It sort of does dry fairly firm. It stays a little bit soft, but so you have to. There are 3 sections to the supercharger. The body, this is the rotor plate, where the rotors are actually mounted into. Then the nose, and the idea is when you're replacing the coupler is to lever between these 2 bits. I used a square extension and a big screwdriver here and here, and don't forget the bolts. There's a bolt there, and there's another bolt somewhere else. Is there? Yeah, oh that's right, sorry, the bolt's down there. You can see right there. That was a bit of a nightmare to get to. There's a one down here, and I think without that wiring, no, yeah, there's another one right there. So you're not going to be able to see it, but you can see the cutout for it. Yeah, there's a bolt in there, so don't forget about it. This is where your quarter drive socket set, even if it's just a crap one, really does come in handy. You need a few extensions and a few universal joints. No, I didn't bother putting a bit of gasket. Oh, hang on, did I or not? Oh, okay, with the it has a gasket between here and the manifold, and yeah, I just sat it back in. It doesn't seal anything, but I believe it's important to maintain the clearance for when you tighten this bolt down, so it doesn't put any stress on anything. So it's just a shim as far as I'm concerned. If you mutilate, the bit of gasket stayed there now that I remember, but if you mutilate the bit of gasket, get some 1/2 mil gasket paper, or I think it's 1/2 millimeter, or maybe it's 1 mil, and then just, it wouldn't matter if it was 1 mil, whatever, just something's better than nothing. Just put it in there and, you know, cut it to the shape. There is a torque spec for the bolts. No, I didn't bother using it, I just tightened them up firmly. I got a fair idea of how tight they should be just based on how tight they were to get out. The main thing with these is cleanliness. Now, I used brake system cleaner, like the nose was completely off it. I tilted it so this end is pointing down on an angle like this, and I sprayed probably 3/4 of a can in it. Then this part with the phasing gears, I really gave it a thorough clean to get all the old lubricant out, any traces of sealant, because remember, any dirt that's in there is going to get straight into the bearings and ruin them. So when you get the kit, it does come with oil, but buy a second bottle of oil, because it won't be enough. It'll be enough to lubricate it, enough to start it up and idle it and stuff, but don't go driving it like that, because these bearings in here, they're lubricated by the oil that sits in here. Now, another point that came up from a Holden dealer was just use engine oil, but don't use engine oil because it's specialised, fully synthetic supercharger oil that's specific to this supercharger. And I really strongly advise you guys and girls to just use either the General Motors oil for this exact thing, AC Delco, which is pretty much the same oil, or the Eton brand oil, which it's all the same oil made by Eton, but really I suggest you just stick with what the manufacturer and designer intended to put in this supercharger. They used this Eton M90 on Jaguars and a whole lot of other different cars, so it wasn't just the L67 that used this. There's the option of a smaller pulley to give you more boost, so you can go from 6 to 10 or 6 to 12. The more boost you run, the quicker the coupler will wear out. Now, the point of the plastic coupler, you might think, oh my god, that's terrible having plastic in something, but it's to provide some cushion for when you mash that pedal, especially when you're running more than 6 pounds, so that the phasing gears don't lose teeth, because it's pretty well known that will happen if you go getting aftermarket couplers, which I really don't recommend you do. The kit's not expensive, it was under $100. It came with a sealant, a brand new filler plug. I'm not exactly sure why, I mean, but they give it to you just in case someone's mutilated it. But it does come with a new O-ring on the filler plug. You should be checking the level in this supercharger often. You should have an Allen key sitting in your glove box at all times, and some lubricant sitting somewhere else, because if you ever run that out while you're driving, say if you're on a long trip and this seal here starts to leak, then you're going to ruin that supercharger really quick. Also, if you neglect the coupler, what it does, when the coupler's worn out, it sounds like there's a handful of gravel or rocks in the thing. It just sounds violent, like someone's replaced all these tensioner idler pulleys thinking they were the problem, but they weren't. It was the supercharger. Someone said, oh my, it's knackered, we'll need a rebuild or a new one, but it just needed a coupler in it. It still makes plenty of boost. If you have the problem with these, because this had a little sharp bend that was custom made, this is what I did to overcome that. I've just got a large radius bend on it, and really there's a boost control valve or bypass control valve down the back of the engine, somewhere down there. You need to replace all the vacuum lines because it won't make boost otherwise. Like this is, I've replaced this had a little 90-degree bend coupler on it. So I've replaced all the vacuum hoses and it made a massive difference. It runs a hell of a lot smoother and stuff like that. So that's the main 2 things I've done to this so far. So thanks for your patience, and thanks for watching.